Hello, people. We don't usually do a Monday show, but we have an interesting guest today, Mike Codella, and we're going to bring him on shortly. Let me just say hi to who's ever in here right now, real quickly. John O'Master, Mob Talk Podcast, Jenny Patterson, Vinny the Weasel, Miss Can't Be Wrong, David Cameron. Let's see, trying to get down here. Cambodia Joe. Okay, we got John O'Master in here. Brooklyn Rob, sure you're welcome as long as you be respectful of the show. Okay, so we'll bring up Mike right now. Mike Codella, how you doing?
Hey, man. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to interview today. I've done some research on you. You're a very interesting guy. And why don't you tell us a few things about yourself, Mike, before we get going?
Okay. So I was a cop for 20 years in New York City. I came on in 1983. I got out in 2003. So I did 20 years on the button. I worked in, of course, like most cops, I started out in uniform patrol. Then I first I started out in uniform in Coney Island. And then where Danny knows well, obviously. And then I wanted to transfer to a little bit more of an active place. I went out to Alphabet City, Lower Manhattan. Now they call it the East Village, but back then it was called Alphabet City. And I wanted to go there, and that's where I ended up. And I hooked up with another young guy that I knew from Coney Island. Actually, I knew him from the police academy, and we started to work together. And then we ended up in a unit called Operation 8. And it was kind of like an anti-crime unit, but it was actually federally funded. So there was only 4 guys and a sergeant, and we were really we were put together to specifically target the worst areas in Alphabet City, the worst projects in Alphabet City.
Which they all pretty much are.
They're all pretty bad, but there's 8 specific that they want us to target, and mostly for narcotics and guns, heroin, obviously, and guns, and that's what we did. And then from there, I went to the Detective Bureau and made Sergeant and DEA. I was in the DEA for a couple of years after that and did some undercover work.
Did you purposely take an early retirement, Mike?
Well, I didn't retire. I retired. We're allowed to retire with 20 years.
Right.
And that's how you collect your pension, 20 years.
Because you still look like you're in great shape. So I was just, you look pretty young.
I retired young. I retired when I was barely 41. So.
Oh, good for you.
I was.
You and Danny actually know people familiar with each other. So I'm going to let Danny start off the questioning. And so the interview, I'm sorry, not the questioning, the interview. I shouldn't use the questioning with a cop. Okay, Danny, if you want to start off the interview and ask Mike some questions, I would appreciate it.
How you doing, Mike?
Hey, man.
So we have several people in common that we interacted with or in your case, arrested or surveilled and whatnot. But my story began at Brooklyn Auto Glass, that you may or may not be familiar with, on Neptune Avenue in Brooklyn. Yep. And that's where I got my start. And it was obviously a Gambino affiliate, in power there, or for lack of a better word. And so obviously that's where I started. But prior to that, I was a manager / overtaker of the Clement Hotel, which was located on West 15th Street in Coney Island. And a lot of people that you arrested or surveilled, I did business with in a weird sort of way. But, that's why I wanted you to come on the program. You're a very interesting guy. You have a lot of knowledge, background in this kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to have you on and try to pick your brain a little bit.
Sure.
And so let's start out by your drug days or your surveillance of certain people in Coney Island, beginning on 23rd Street, which was a hot spot back in the late 80s, early 90s when crack really took hold. But there were some interesting characters that you were involved with, if you can talk about them.
Yeah. So, like I said, I originally went to Coney Island when I was a rookie, right out of the academy. I did about 5 or 6 months there. And actually, my first my first drug collar. It might actually be I think it was my first drug collar. There was a guy walking on a white kid walking on Mermaid Avenue, and I want to say about 30th Street, Mermaid and 30th Street. And I was with a seasoned guy, a seasoned cop, older guy, actually a guy looking to retire, but a good guy, not like a lazy guy. You know, I was a young piss and vinegar rookie, and he was an older guy, but he wouldn't slow me down, whatever I wanted to do. And we were driving down Mermaid Avenue, and 30th Street. I see this white guy bend over and pick up a bottle cap, and I didn't know to be honest, I didn't know what, but all I said to myself was, why would a white guy be on 30th Street bending over, picking up a bottle cap? What doesn't make any reason. So I pull the car over, we jump out, and sure as hell, he had a bunch of heroin on him that he got. I don't know if you remember a liquor store on about 22nd Street. Do you remember that liquor store?
I do. Yeah.
That's what he copped out of.
Right.
But anyway, that was my first drug arrest. Then I did a couple more months there, and then I eventually came back and did a case in Coney Island when I was assigned to the DEA, when I was a drug enforcement agent. And those are the guys that you know.
Now, you guys are telling an interesting story about a gentleman that you both were familiar with. I think that was a pretty interesting story, if you guys can cover it again, if you don't mind, about the accidental mistake.
Okay.
Love.
That's your acquaintance, right, Danny?
Yeah, I was indirectly involved with Love. When I worked in the hotel, that was the drug drop-off point. He used to drop his drugs and go wherever he used to go, so he wasn't hot, or he wasn't carrying anything. He used to put it in a big gym bag, and I don't know if you remember two police officers out of the 6-0. You may or may not. Ans Peck and Schneider. Does that ring a bell?
No. Who's that?
Well, they were regular uniform cops, but they were knock-around cops. And what I mean by that, unless you did something really bad, they wouldn't bother you. But they nicknamed me the Clement Kid because I used to get a lot of fights there. And I had a lot of problems with these pimps. There was one, excuse my verbiage, but they used to call him Nigger Charlie. And I don't know if you knew him. No. But he used to have that green Lincoln. He used to drive around with the big spoke wheels. He was from Manhattan. Anyway, long story short, they used to come there and drop everything off. And I know you had some interactions with him. Obviously, you surveilled him and you made a big bust with them guys. If you'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't mind. So when I was in DEA, we did this pretty big case in Alphabet City, and then it kind of winded down. We locked up 40 guys. The number 2 guy in the organization cooperated, and it turned out to be a good case. But like I said, as it started to wind down, the chief called me in the office and said, look, I'd like you to see if you can do something with these guys over in Coney Island. First of all, they were getting a lot of complaints that the people in the project, which I'm sure you're well aware of, they were afraid to walk out at night.
Sure.
Older people, the kid, these guys would like basically lock down the building and, had walkie-talkies, and they talked to each other, let this guy in, let that one. So it was a horror. But anyway, along with that, these guys used to kind of screw with my chief when he was assigned there as a captain. They'd line up on Mermaid Avenue and they'd salute him, or they'd give him the finger, and they would just break his chops. And it stuck in his head. Now he makes chief, and I'm in DEA, and he has some kind of he wants some kind of retribution on these guys.
Right.
So he asked me if I could go to Coney Island and see if I could get a case going. So he gave me a couple of mugshots of these guys, but I already knew who they were, their names, because I had worked there as a rookie. And I remember they were, kind of popular guys. And I didn't have dealings with them as a rookie, but I did remember their names. But anyway, I get their pictures. I didn't go with surveillance because bad enough one Italian guy is hanging out on Mermaid Avenue, and then I'm going to have a call, 20 DEA agents following me. I didn't even tell them, to be honest. I just went in a tank top, sweatpants, shorts, whatever, and started hanging out. So I see this guy, Love, who we both know, and I make it my business to make sure that he sees me in the area, and he does. And actually, one time he was getting gas. He had a Mercedes 190 at the time. I think it was black, if I'm not mistaken. And he was getting gas, and I got gas next to him, and I started a conversation about his car. And then later on, a couple of weeks later, I meet this female, and I tell her I'm basically looking to score some drugs. she thinks I'm like a head wise guy, and she introduces me to, amongst other people. One of the guys is Love, who she says is a heavily connected guy, and he's got a lot of money. He makes a lot of, sells a lot of, and he was a little hinky of me at first, but he remembered seeing me on the avenue for a couple of weeks. And then he, we did some deals. I did some deals with his brothers, and some other guys. You know how it works. One guy meets the other guy. He wasn't losing any business, introducing me to other people. And we eventually take down, I think, about we locked up federally, I think, about 17 people from 23rd Street, Gravesend, Cary Gardens, 2007 Surf.
Yeah, sure.
You know the buildings.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, what kind of bust? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No problem. You go.
To my knowledge, I know they were also taking drugs down to Virginia, if that rings a bell.
You're right. Well, they were, absolutely. In fact, the one brother, we didn't, when we came time, when you do a major operation, you try to lock up everybody at once so people don't flee. So let's say we're gonna hit 20 apartments at 4, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. The one brother was gone. We missed the one brother. They eventually got him. The marshals, I think, eventually got him, but he was actually on a trip to make a drop off down there or pick up down there, whatever he was doing.
That organization was huge, and I don't mean huge in the sense of but from 20th Street, 2007, all the way down to Haber houses and all back there, it was bizarre. You couldn't. They used to have guards or scouts or whatever you want to call them, and they were everybody. It was a system. It was a system. They know who the drug addicts were. It was like a little city. It was bizarre.
Well, you're going to get a kick out of it. It's actually in my book. This story. It's kind of a funny story. So I'm from Canarsie, and we have Canarsie has a lot of guys, knockaround guys. So I'm at very early on in the case when I was going to meet Love and one of his brothers by the diner right off the expressway. Is that Stillwell or Cropsey?
Nebraska. It used to be Nebraska.
When you get back on the highways, right there.
Yeah.
Right.
By Pat Mark and all that.
Right, exactly. Right, Nebraska. So I'm in the parking lot waiting for them, and sure as hell they come. The two brothers, maybe three guys, I don't remember. They're out, and now they don't know me at this point, really. We were introduced once with the female, but they don't really know me. We had to make a buy at this point. I had to make a buy at this point. Anyway, they pull up, we're talking. One of the guys from Canarsie, one of the knockaround guys from Canarsie, who I played for, he was a little older than me. He was my sister's age, 2 years older. I played football with him in high school. He was, like I said, 2 years older than me, but he was like one of the better players. He was like the star linebacker. But he had been a knockaround guy. He built those those little houses on like, I want to say 18th Street, maybe 19th Street.
Yeah.
He was involved.
I remember. I'm sure.
He was involved. He got the okay from Sammy was one of his. Anyway, he knew a lot of people.
Right.
And he drove a big, beautiful. He bought himself a Rolls Royce. So he pulls into the diner with this Rolls Royce, and I see him, and I shit myself because he knows I'm a cop. Right. And we were friendly. He used to come to my yard and swim in my pool with me and my sister. I mean, we were good friends. But I figured the first words out of his mouth was going to be, "Hey, Mike, how's the job doing?" Or what?
Exactly.
I see him, and he's a big, muscular guy, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm done." I was going to give him the cold shoulder, but he knew he's such a sharp guy, and I've seen him since. And he read the book without me even telling him, and he says, "Hey, that's me on page 97." Right? He remembers. Right. He gets out of Rolls Royce. He sees me. He sees the black dudes. And he runs over, he hugs me, gives me the 2 kisses, gives me the typical blessing, so to speak.
Sure.
These guys seen that, and they said, "Oh, Mike's the real deal," meaning me.
Right.
And that actually helped me get in with these guys.
Hey, Mike, I'd like to ask you a question. Now, you mentioned that someone that you arrested or knew you read your book. Do you come across people that you've actually arrested that they're free now? And you have a different type of relationship with them now?
I got to be honest. A lot of the guys, especially the heavyweights that we put away, they've done a lot of time. I mean, because it was federal time and it was jail. I mean, narcotics. A lot of times they came with a gun, so they got slammed. So I know 3/4 of them, or maybe all of them, are out at this point. So I don't come into contact with these guys.
I noticed that you were on Jimmy Calandra's show, and what's your opinion of Jimmy, being that he was an informant? How do you feel about stuff like that?
Well, I think I actually mentioned it on his show, so I'll tell you a quick story regarding those Lower East Side guys. So we took down these 40 guys. The head of the main guy we really wanted, we eventually catch in a really bizarre way. But aside from him, the top guy was a soft-spoken Hispanic guy, Puerto Rican kid. We were able to put his mother got on the phone, his sister got on the phone. It was a wire, aside from all the buys we did with them, we had them on the wiretap. So everybody in his family was basically arrestable. The mother, the sister, and him. And like I said, he was a soft-spoken, never did any real jail time guy. The number 2 guy was this hard rock black kid, did time, and we thought for sure the top guy was gonna flip, right? Don't you know that even with the threat of his mother going to jail and his sister going to jail, their house is getting taken, and these guys were making millions. They were not making a couple of excuse me. I mean, they were documented making millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars. Even with all his money being seized and his mother and sister being threatened to us to put them away, do you know the number 1 guy did not flip? The number 2 guy flipped. The hard rock ex-inmate, he flipped, which we were amazed at. Once he flipped, just about everybody in the indictment took a plea. No, we didn't go to one trial. Everybody took a plea. Okay, so my reason for bringing that up is because, and like I say all the time, I would love to say that I would never flip, to be honest. But I don't know that because I've never been faced with my mother going to jail, my sister going to jail, my father I've never been faced with that. I've never been faced with maybe doing life. So I know a lot of guys say I would never flip. I'm strong. I would never cooperate. I don't know how many guys would cooperate and won't cooperate. And another thing, a lot of guys who have done time, they'll come out and they'll say, I didn't cooperate. Well, you know what? Maybe the government didn't ask you for shit. Maybe they didn't offer. Maybe they didn't offer you. Maybe they didn't need anybody that you knew. They were happy getting you, locking you up, and they didn't want to give you an offer. So to answer your question, I know guys get, we're bred and indoctrinated to believe rats are, bad and terrible and all that shit. But you know what? The truth is, and this is the way I look at it. If I have a mob guy or a drug dealer or a guy like a gas pipe or whatever, Scarpa, whatever, living next door to me, and God forbid they do a hit on this guy and they miss him and they hit my kid coming home at 4 a.m, I would be thankful that a guy like Jimmy or you or somebody would have ratted on this fucking guy, because the bottom line is, even though they did crimes themselves, getting another guy off the street that could possibly hurt my family, I think outweighs the negative.
Well, Mike, let me ask you a question. Okay, you say you got a guy like John Gotti, and they let someone as vicious as Sammy Gravano out, who was probably worse than John Gotti,
right? And
they let him out in the street, and he's an informer. Now he's supposedly turned his life around and has a massive show. You got Michael Dowd. You guys got good cops like yourself, off the cuff guys on here doing shows, and you're good cops. And then you see this guy, Michael Dowd, come along, and he's laughing. He thinks everything's a joke.
You're right.
And
did he I don't know. I know he did time. I didn't realize he cooperated, Dowd. Did he?
No, he didn't cooperate, but he there was a lot of things he did that he did not go to jail for.
Well, the premise to me, I'm gonna be honest and open with you. I was involved in a heinous crime. Somebody got murdered. I did 18 and a half years in prison. My whole thinking and train of thought when it comes to people that cooperate, I get the idea of Scarpa living next door or anything like that. My whole theory behind it is that they come on a platform after they're informants. They do their 5 years, their 6 years, their 8 years, whatever it is, and they're afforded being released. And they get out and they come on a platform and they tell their story, which I have no objections to. But when you come on a forum and you put yourself out there like we are now, you're open to ridicule, whether it's being called a rat, a piece of shit, whatever. And I'm talking about them as individuals, not their families, not their. My whole thing, my thought process is, if you made an agreement with the government, 302s, Pro4, if you sat down and you volunteered information to let yourself off whatever heinous crimes you've committed, that's your decision. But whatever comes with that decision, you have to kind of accept.
I agree.
And, I never did federal time. I was involved in a murder. I had 15 to life. I ended up doing 18 and a half years on it. I got out. Thank God, knock wood, I have a business. I'm a better person. And all my time was in state. But I have a problem with people coming on here and saying that they ratted because this guy did that. If I could understand if they owned it and kept it moving, I can understand that. But there's always a blame game. You remember Salty? Do you remember Salty, Mike, from Coney Island? He had the MFC club by the Carolinas.
Yes.
On Mermaid Avenue.
Yeah.
All right. I used to stand over there because I thought who the fuck I was. And I wanted to be a wise guy, a tough guy. And it was ingrained in you. If somebody came out and said, oh, that kid over there threw a piece of paper on the ground, he would get a smack, because of that logic. And I think now that since all these tough guys or wise guys that flipped and became federal informants, where is that same demeanor or that same example? You don't see it anymore.
Example as far as what?
As
Keep
far
the
as
neighborhood clean?
No. It's as far as it's a given now. You expect somebody that gets arrested.
I know.
To rap. Now it's the norm. Years ago, they would end up dead, more or less. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my that's my train of thought.
I mean, listen,
and maybe I'm different than a lot of people, but and again, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I don't accept it. I don't like it. And I'm talking to you now, and my hands are sweating, and I'm not trying to make up a story.
No, I buy it.
It hurts me if I go out and do something with you, this guy, that guy, and we get busted, and we're in the precinct, and all of a sudden you're taken out the back door because you haven't. That to me, I have this rage inside of me. And don't get me wrong, I get it. But you're a man like I am.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Listen, yeah. That was my point. I don't.
Right.
I don't know what I would love to sit here and say I would never rap, but I've never been in that situation. I've been in jail.
And I appreciate that. That's an honest. I appreciate that.
I got to tell you a very quick story that when I was a teenager. So of course it's not a little bit applicable, but so we were young and we were hanging out on Flatlands Avenue in Canarsie, and Bruno Facciolo comes out and tries to throw us away from his pizzeria, and we didn't know who he is. Everybody knew Bruno by nickname, but we didn't know.
Can you explain who he was? He was part of the Lucchese crime family.
Yeah, and he was a well-respected guy. And even in Canarsie, with all the guys there, he was, we knew the name, but we didn't know.
And he ended up getting killed because he wasn't a rat.
And they stuck a bird in his mouth that he wasn't a rat. Right. And the reason, that's when Al Diaco told that story, I had a federal case going in the same building, and we were on a break, and I got to watch Al Diaco tell the whole story. But anyway, it's interesting. But anyway, so he comes out and he tries to shoo me and my friends away. And we're like, yeah, go inside, old man. We don't know the fuck he is. He comes out again. We'll leave when we want to leave, basically. We're 16, 17.
Sure.
Tough kid. We think we're tough. Okay. Anyway, make a long story short, I leave. Not because of Bruno, but because I was had it for the night. I was going home. My friends stay. And we didn't really hang out there. We just happened to be walking by, but now they're going to hang out there specifically. Bruno comes out again with a baseball bat. My friends take the bat from him and they do a number on him. Now, two of the kids, they were two brothers. Their father was Vic Amuso's good friend. In fact, the bar that Vic's bar was actually under my friend's father's name, the Walnut Bar on Flatlands Avenue. Anyway, make a long story short, out of the 5 guys, everybody got retribution. Everybody took a beating or got shot or got in big trouble, except the one guy who obviously his father was a connected guy too, who obviously dropped the dime. Now, can you respect that kind of a guy or that kind of a rat? Of course not.
Right.
He became an adult. He did drug deals and he got caught as an adult recently.
Right.
And so everybody was saying, "Oh, he ratted. I heard he ratted." I actually knew the DEA agent that locked him up. It's just a small world. He used to go to the gym I worked out at. Anyway, he supposedly ratted. So that's this guy's nature. He's just a rat. He gave us up his kids. He gave up adults when he got caught. So of course a guy like that, is he did a couple of years, but he should have got a lot more years. But he's a no good guy. So nobody could respect, obviously, myself included, a guy like that.
Right.
But a guy that who comes out and tries to, like a guy like Jimmy. I'll use his specifically. To me, and I don't know Jimmy other than talking to him on the phone here a couple of times, and actually a friend of mine who trains with me is a little younger than Jimmy, but knows Jimmy from the neighborhood back there when he lived over there. And he said, because I asked him, I said, when I told him I was going on his show or vice versa, he said Jimmy was a legitimate tough guy. He said guys didn't fuck with him. He was good, he was fast. I don't know how good he was, but he was fast with his hands. He was, okay. So, but regardless, he came out, he did his time. I think he's remorseful. Do you agree with that, or you don't agree with that?
Well,
I mean, 16 years.
Say it again.
He did 16 years.
I'm going to say something real quick, Danny. I'll be honest with you. Out of these guys like John A. Light, and I think that Jimmy Calandra is probably the most sincere person about what he did, compared to John A. Light or Larry Mazza or those guys. That's the reality. Whether I agree with it, but you said something, Mike, that makes a lot of sense. Nobody knows except Danny, because Danny did the 20 years that he was supposed to do. But I don't know what I would do if I was looking at big time. I understand what you're saying. But Mike, I want to ask you one question. Have you ever arrested somebody and then he's released and you're like, what the hell? Why did they just release him?
As far as him being released because he's an informant, or
you don't know why he's released? Like all of a sudden he's just released.
We used to lock guys up all the time. I mean, when I worked in Alphabet City, now unit Operation 8, the street, the narcotic unit, the plainclothes, we locked the same guy up every week, literally. I'm not even kidding.
That's a judge. That's the judges right there.
Yeah, I mean, literally every week we'd see the guy go in, okay, and then every week when we lock him up, because we'd lock them up for dealing, carrying packages, or they knew who we were. Me and my partner worked down Alphabet City like 10 years in plain clothes, so everybody knew us. We weren't undercover; they knew us. We had talk about informants and snitches. We have more people coming up to us giving information. We literally, this is no exaggeration, we'd be on the roof landing, on the roof, 484 East Houston Street. That's a project on Houston Street, right off the drive that we used to like. Coming up, talking to us. We pushed them out the other roof door, and then another one come in this door. Literally, like giving information about each other because they wanted better treatment from us, which we gave them. You come up to us and you give us, this guy's dirty today, he's selling here, this guy just came out with a new heroin brand, presidential. Okay, you mind if I deal today? You mind if I work a little today and make some? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, you could deal today. And so these guys were literally, and they're giving up their competition, so they were literally basically hanging each other. So okay. That's a little different. They just that's really a legitimate rat.
Tommy Stiggs, Danny wasn't able to answer what Mike asked him. Please let him. Okay. Do you remember what he asked you?
Well,
Danny?
It goes back to Jimmy. I'm just going to say this because, and it goes to anybody in my opinion. Larry Mazza, any of them. A rat is a rat. Now, there's no divisions. There's no hierarchy. A rat is a rat, and that's my opinion. That's my stance. I wouldn't break bread with the guy. I wouldn't even be seen with the guy.
I get that. But again, let me just change the question because I think you asked me. Now I'm going to ask you, Danny.
Sure.
And I want to try to ask it in a delicate manner and almost in a realistic manner. So, again, let's just say one of these guys that Jimmy cooperated against. I don't know how many. I know he cooperated against the one guy, Spiro, right? Anthony Spiro, or
right.
One of the Spiro guys,
right.
who I really don't know much about. But would you rather that guy? And listen, I grew up, like I said, you know this. I grew up in Canarsie. I grew up with
Testa. I know.
Corazzo, Vic Amuso, Frank Lestino.
Yeah.
They're older than me, obviously, but
sure.
They're neighborhood guys.
Sure. And we also have somebody in common in Coney Island. We won't use his name.
Right.
We know who he is.
Yeah, and he actually helped that guy I was talking about with the buildings over there. Yeah. Would you? And again, but would you rather? We can't say. My grandfather is godfather to Joe the Cat Lafort, who owned Gotti's Social Club on Mulberry Street.
The Cat. Right.
The Cat is my grandfather, who's long passed away. That's his godson.
Right.
So I have a history with, probably not as much as you, but I have a history with some of these guys. But in any event, would you honestly rather have these guys maybe grab? I know you have a son that I'm sure you love very much. Would you rather have them getting their hooks into your son and maybe grooming him, or maybe having him passing by their social club where he could get clipped because they're looking to grab one of these other guys? I mean, really,
that's a great question, Mike.
It's not safe. They're not safe.
Right. Let me tell you, I grew up on West 15th Street, and every day I used to walk down Mermaid Avenue, and I used to see Salty, and I used to see a lot of other guys that used to hang out at the MFC club. They had wads of money, and I'm going to keep this brief. And I used to emulate them. Now, my father, he was a hard worker, but he was a knockaround guy. He was involved in some things many, many years later. But anyway, and I used to come home and I used to say, wow, what do they do all day? They sit there. So with that being said, that was and I'm not taking anything away from my mother and father. They were hard workers. I saw that and I wanted to gravitate toward that, which was absolutely wrong. But when you're in that environment, and maybe you could speak to that point, Coney Island back then was the wild, wild west. It was crazy back then.
Yep.
And I did. But my point is that, like, I have a son now. He's 17 years old. And that's why I left New York. Because I didn't want my son, God forbid, gravitating towards that. And again, I don't think wise guys groom kids. And I could be wrong. I think everybody knows in the neighborhood what they are, who they are. And they gravitate, like I did, towards that because it's very impressionable at 16, 17,
okay, but that kind of speaks to my point a little bit. Maybe I exaggerated the point, but again, listen, like I said, we both know, the same kind of lifestyle. But so in Alphabet City, where I worked for all those years, heroin was the capital of the world. Junkies came from all over the country just to buy their dope there, bring it back to Iowa, Ohio, from New York. Everybody, these kids, young kids, they see these guys in the Lamborghinis, the Porsches, and everything was bought back then. There was no leasing cars in the 80s. Every time when you saw a kid with a Alfa Romeo convertible, he owned that car. So these young kids see these drugs, and they first they're looking out. They're looking out for the cops. No, there's no cops. Okay, let's okay. Well, then they become steerers. Elegante on 3rd Street. Oh, okay, and then they end up pitching dope, and then they end up being big shots. That's because they see it in front of them. If the main dealer is picked up or pinched, it's not going to be so prevalent. And it's the same thing in the mob, mob life. So at least I think. So again, you did what, 19, what'd you say, 20 years there?
18 and a half years.
All right, so you did almost 19 years, a long time. Now, if I think you said, but it wasn't a mob related incident, right?
No, it was an armed robbery.
Okay, but I mean, but that was something that you weren't strange to, or you've
Right.
seen them, or right? Okay, if these mob guys weren't around and you weren't that comfortable, maybe sticking up somebody or however the robbery went down, bro, that's 20 years out of your life you would have saved. And I'm not a relative of yours. I don't want to use your son or my son.
No.
That's a relative that if they didn't see another mob guy, maybe you saved 20 years from your relative's life or my son's life or something.
But I'd like to ask a question. Danny, I'd like to ask you a question on that. Danny, at the time that you did the robbery, I mean, Newsday put it in the paper and said that you and your friend were associated with the Columbos.
Yeah. The paper indicated that we had ties to the Colombo crime family, and they gave us this tag as being associated. The guy that I got arrested with was Anthony Rizzo. He was the grandson of Nicky Rizzo, who was part of the Colombo crime family. I was around two people that are dead now. I'll give you their names. Bobby Bibbs, I don't know if you know him, and Jimmy Gooch, that he just died. Anyway, his last name was Fabrera, Vinny Fabrera. I don't know if you know him from Avenue U. Okay, so that's what they tagged me with. So it is what it is. You know, my uncle Vinny Aspromonte was also involved with Michael Franzese in the gas scheme in the 80s and 90s or whatever. So there was a history there, but that's here and there. I'm a jerk off. I'm a nobody. But you know, it is what it is. And I don't know, you know, when you grow up around that kind of thing, you do stupid things, and it is what it is. I can't take back what I did. I just have to go forward and learn and teach my son what's right and wrong, because my life essentially is over. I'm here to benefit my son and to make sure that his life goes as good as it could go. I did my time. I you know, my life is teaching now for my son. I have no other purpose, because all the things that I've done in my life bad, they've caught up to me and they surpassed me. So I'm not trying to make myself out to be this big shot, because I'm a little guy. I'm not a big shot. But my point is growing up around this is what you emulate, and this is what you want to be. However people interpretate that, it is what it is. But when you grow up in Brooklyn, Manhattan, certain areas, you see the social clubs, you see the guys with the fancy cars and the dark glasses and the nice shoes and clothes, and you want to be like that. You know what I mean? Some become police officers, some become wise guys.
Okay.
You know?
I'm going to get off this subject. We're going to go to another one. Mike, you worked sometimes you worked undercover. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And your undercover was short stints, would you basically say?
They lasted maybe 8 months, some of them. 7, 8 months.
Oh, so how did it, how did you feel when you were undercover? Was there like a fear in you that you might be found out? Was it like in you every day that you like were nervous doing it? I mean, what's the?
Yeah, so I didn't change identities, although I had fake licenses and fake other cars came back to, you know, addresses in Manhattan where I didn't live, obviously, and all that stuff. But I didn't live in an apartment. Although they would have gave me an apartment for that guy, Jim, that I told you about earlier. They wanted to give me an Upper East Side apartment, which I didn't want to deal with. But in any event, you know, you have to, you know, you're playing a part, and whether it's dealing with black guys, Spanish guys, Italians, whatever it is, part of the criminal life is either there's betrayal. You know, the thing that law enforcement has on its side is greed. Criminals are greedy, and even though they sometimes may see a red flag in front of them, they don't want to believe that. I was doing a drug buy up in Washington Heights, and the guy actually saw my surveillance from far away with a long camera. You know,
the lenses used to be
lens,
long.
right? Yeah. That's what he saw, the lens we were far, and he saw him, and he, you know, we had a little bit of words, and he got in his car and he left. I thought the case might have been over. You know, I said, this guy got spooked. He thinks now you know, I said, he's spooked. And sure as shit, he called me up maybe like a week later. Now, when I met him, I didn't know if he was going to look to, kill me because, to get the case, make it disappear, or if he was actually looking to make money. But again, greed works on our side, and he saw money, dollar signs. He saw a guy who was looking to spend, and he wasn't sharp enough to actually heed the warning of the camera. So yeah, something, so like I said, it's so if you're a legitimate bad guy dealing with other legitimate bad guys, it's nerve-wracking. And when you're a good guy dealing with bad guys, it's nerve-wracking. There's no honor amongst thieves, right? I mean, look how many Italian guys kill each other, right?
So what do you think about a guy like Joe Pistone that literally changed his life for 6 years and went undercover? Does that baffle your mind when you think about that?
And he even said he enjoyed it. I believe in an interview that I saw him, he actually became, what he wanted to be, essentially a wise guy. He actually, he had that. So it's funny, how guys get so in depth with being undercover.
The good part about what he did is that he really went into that life 100%. Whereas I would go in, hang out with them all night, and then I'd go back to my regular life. Right. And there were times when one day I was actually with my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, and I ran into these bad guys in the Kings Plaza Mall.
Right. Sure.
So, you have the good side of going deep under and the bad side. The bad side is you're giving up your life. The good side is you're not going to run into them when you're with your real family,
Right.
Okay. So Mike, getting into your personal life a little bit. Now, you said something to me that kind of took me by surprise. I'm a big UFC fan, and you are, what belt are you in jiu-jitsu? And tell us something about your business.
So I'm a 4th degree black belt under Renzo Gracie, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu member of the Gracie family, obviously. They created the UFC. And I've been training with him over 25 years. And I have an academy in Staten Island, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu academy here in Staten Island.
That's pretty amazing. A 4th degree black belt. I mean, that takes dedication. Just getting your purple belt is considered dedication, but a 4th degree black belt, I mean,
I'm old. It just means I'm old.
Yeah, but still. Okay. Now, Danny, do you have more questions you want to ask?
Oh, yeah. When there's a couple of things. Do you remember on Neptune Avenue? I know the glass shop. I think we used to laugh because the FBI and even people from the organized task force, crime task, used to be on Jack's Tire. You remember where Jack's Tire used to be across the street by Dodono's Pizzeria?
Yeah, sure. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
They used to be up there with these, and I'm exaggerating, but these lenses were like 4 feet long, but they really weren't. But they used to home right in. It was hysterical. It was hysterical. But Coney Island back then was really crazy. It was really nuts. And we have a mutual friend of ours will agree to disagree that he's a made member of a certain organized crime family. But he's a friend of mine, and I'm not going to divulge who his name is.
How old is he now? He's got to be. Is he in his late 70s?
Yeah, he's 75.
He is 75.
And we,
like I said, I knew him. I don't know him. I knew of him when I worked down here as during that case with the 23rd Street.
Sure. You remember the Crown Bar, with Dempsey's Bar, next to the hotel? It was a cop bar. All the cops used to go in there.
No, I honestly don't. I didn't drink. I never drank, so I didn't know. I remember the pizzeria. Did you just name that pizzeria?
Yeah, Totono's. That was Cookie's place. That was on Neptune Avenue, West 15th, right on the corner.
Yeah, and that's got to be the place because my field training officer, the guy who trained me when I was a rookie in Coney Island, I think that's the place he always wanted me to go. And the guy, I just didn't eat pizza when I was younger, but the guys he used to love that place. I think is that the only place, or was there one next to it?
No, that was the only place. Yeah. And you had Mezzo's bakery right on the corner.
Right.
Was the pastry shop.
Right.
Was right on the corner, and Dodono's was right next door.
That's it for sure.
Tommy Stiggs has a question. Did Mike, did you only cover drugs and gambling, or did you go undercover for other stuff besides that?
I did mostly only drugs. I did not when I was in DEA. I did a big case on, believe it or not, the gypsies. when they they scam all these people, and they couldn't get the cops have a hard, telling a fortune is not illegal. Like if you walk into a fortune teller and give them $10, it's considered entertainment. It becomes a crime when they start taking you for a ride, basically, to make it very simple. When they start taking you for a ride, then it becomes a crime when it's no more entertainment. So it was becoming a big thing. One woman lost $50,000. Another woman with some government connections to the mayor back then lost like $20,000. So it happens all over the city, and it got to the mayor's ear, the police commissioner, and they wanted us to do something about it. So they would send cops in, female cops, and nobody could get these female gypsies to do more than just a bullshit $10 reading, basically. Because, like I said, a $10 reading is not a crime. So I was able to figure out how to make them make me for a sucker, basically. Where they were going to sucker me in, and they did. So I did a case. We locked up, I think it was, I want to say 18 or 19 different gypsies at one time, like a takedown, like a big takedown. But I mean, it wasn't violent. Just that's what they were doing. But the bottom line is they were they want you to spend money, and they'll tell you so you have to go. So I was trying to be vulnerable to them, and I needed help and all that shit. And they would say, well, the big thing with them is that you have a curse on your head. And either your mother was cursed when she was pregnant with you, or you were cursed, but you have a black cloud on your head. And I could get you candles from Egypt. The candles cost $500 each. And then they actually do like magic, like a sleight of hand stuff where they give you an egg. One of the people gave me an egg to go home and put it under my bed. Then I go back the next day or 2 days later with the egg, and she does a sleight of hand where she puts a neckerchief over that, and she cracks it in chicken liver, which looks demonic, but it's actually chicken liver shit comes out of the egg. And she said, see, this is because it was under your bed. This is the evil. Let me get the evil out, and it'll cost this much money. And it was, these cases were prolonged. They lasted a couple of months until we spent enough money and were able to get these. So I did cases like that. I had bought and stolen, not stolen, counterfeit goods, like those counterfeit Gucci bags and clothes like that, and from Chinatown, from the Chinese on Canal Street, like thousands of dollars or $50,000 worth of bags and that kind of stuff. So,
well, Mike, you have some interesting shows I noticed on your channel. One you're doing tonight on Eaton Pats. Now, Eaton Pats, for who people doesn't know him, he was really the first kid that was on a milk carton, and basically he really brought to the forefront the kidnapping of children. And you're going to have that show on tonight. So what can you offer people about that show that other people can't?
Okay, so there was a guy. So Eton Pates was the first kid, like you said, on the milk box. President Reagan made it National Missing Kid Day, May 25th. Eton Pates was going to school the first time by himself. Literally the first time the mother was letting him go to the store by himself. I think he was 6 years old. She's looking out the window in Soho. She turns her head for a minute. The kid disappeared, never seen again. Anyway, I talked to an inmate from Attica calls me one day, and he tells me he's got information on Eton Pates and his disappearance. It was way later. This was 1997. Eton Pates disappeared 1979. This guy, he's a biker. He's a 1% biker. He's the vice president of his gang, and he tells me that, I'm going to make it real brief. He tells me that he did security around these Yonkers and Westchester mansions. He did security with his bike gang around these mansions, and inside the mansions, they were having sex, drugs, rock and roll parties, along with satanic rituals. At one of these parties, they bring up the kids, Eton Pates, and they sacrifice them. This cult is also the cult, supposedly, that David Berkowitz was involved with, the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which is the guy who started the Process Church was a disciple of L. Ron Hubbard with the Scientology. He hooks up with L. Ron Hubbard's girlfriend or wife. I'm still not sure if they were ever married. And they go out and they start their own church, which is a satanic cult church. And if you believe it, they were involved with the Son of Sam case, the shootings, and they were involved with the Eton Pates. And so tonight I'm just going to talk about actually more than usual. I'm going to focus on that particular biker who was a pedophile who was in jail for pedophilia. He was a gun guy. They had him for guns, but he was this pedophilia guy, and he was involved with this church, and he was a screwball, a real sick guy, but he had information that panned out. So
now wasn't Eaton Pat's case solved recently?
Yeah, so they lock up Eton Pates, a guy who supposedly confessed a couple of years ago. They had 2 trials from. The first trial was a mistrial, and then the second trial he was convicted. Now that guy, I'm not gonna talk bad about the cops. I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't hear all the testimony, but by all evidence and by his own admittance, he is mentally unstable with a mental history of mental disorder. So they arrest him for Eton Pates. They never found the body. They didn't lock him up back then. All of a sudden, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, he came forward and said he did it. And like I said, a mistrial a hung jury the first time, convicted him the second time. I'm not sure he did it. But whether he did or didn't, this guy, Tiny Lentini, has an interesting story, and a lot of the stuff he told us came out to be true.
So your personal belief, okay, Son of Sam, as we know, I was working in New York City at the time it was happening, and I remember the fear that one person put through the city was incredible.
Danny wasn't making out with any brunettes at that time, right there.
No,
not in the car.
You got black hair, stay away. Son of Sam.
yeah.
That's right.
So the Son of Sam. Do you believe the Son of Sam did the murders on his own, or do you believe there were other people that were involved with him?
Well, okay. So regardless of whether the people believe what I'm going to talk about tonight, whether they believe Tiny or not, this guy, in my head, there's no question that Berkowitz acted with other people. I have a letter that I corresponded with Berkowitz. And he answered me back in a letter. I read it on one of my YouTube page. He never denies it. In fact, after he got arrested, when he originally got arrested, Berkowitz, he said his neighbor's dog told him to do these shootings. Sam Carr's dog told him to do the shootings. A couple of years later, he recanted that, and he said he gave information about the cult and about the other shooters, but he didn't give any names up. But he said, I wasn't alone. It was actually a cult, kind of like what this guy Tiny said. And then he gets his throat slashed. And since then, he refused to talk about the cult anymore or anybody, and he just won't cooperate anymore. Aside from that, on a whole separate note, I know somebody that knows a guy that did time with Berkowitz, and they became friendly. And he told my friend that Berkowitz told him all about the cult, and he kept to the same story, basically, that he wasn't alone, that there was. Now, he told this guy this in confidence, that he worked with other people and all that other stuff. So, I believe Berkowitz worked with other people.
And many cops believe that. I mean, many cops, not just a couple.
Well, if you look at the composite drawings of the witnesses, they look like some of the people we think were involved with him. There's one that looks like a female, and we think we know who this female is. So,
and let's remember, Berkowitz got caught by something that was actually great police work, a ticket. Basically, he parked his car, he got a ticket, and they ran over the tickets, and that's how they caught Berkowitz. It was the simplest way. And they had this huge task force out there doing everything, but they find him by a ticket.
On Bay 14th Street.
That's the police work that people don't talk about. So Mike, do you now, Danny? If you want to ask him anything, you cut me right off. Mike, now you decided to start this podcast and stuff. What made you say, you know what, I want to do this? Because it's you got to have the right stuff to talk about. It's not an easy thing to do. It seems like you're going in the right direction, and So what made you decide you wanted to do it?
You know what, bro? Honestly, Lee, I got all these stories in my head. I wrote the book. The book did really well. In fact, it was optioned for film twice. It didn't get made, obviously, but it was picked up twice. It's all over. It's in all over Europe, all over the UK. It was published all over. So it's a good book. It's got a lot of cool stories, and I have a lot of other stories too. Right? Like I get questions all the time. Are you going to write another book? And I don't think I'm going to be honest. But I know I find like the stuff you guys do. I find that interesting. And I'm not in that life, but I find it interesting. I know guys find cop stuff. You know, I didn't lead a regular cop's life. I only gave one ticket out my whole career, literally one ticket out my whole career. Because the guy drove right past me, and when I got out to talk to him, he was a scumbag. So I only gave one ticket out my whole career, and it was just I had some cool stuff that I think people find interesting.
Without a doubt, Danny.
Yeah, that's why I reached out to you, Mike. You know, and I looked at some of your videos, and everything was quite interesting. And I could just tell you're a regular guy. Forget about being a policeman. You know, you come across well, you speak well, and I think you're going to do very well with your channel. And we're going to sub the hell out of it because you deserve that.
Thanks,
and you know, I really appreciate you sharing some of your insight on some of the things that have happened to you. And you're just an interesting guy, and that goes a long way, you know.
Thanks, guys.
So, Mike, how did you get Jimmy Calandra on your channel? Jimmy usually, when he goes on a channel, he does a lot for it. So, did you just reach out to him and ask him, or?
I think so. I got an Instagram now called Up Against the Wall NYC, but I have an Instagram page where it's my academy, Codella Academy. And I don't know if I followed him or he followed me. And then he said something about jujitsu, that he would love to train. So I invited him down to my academy. I knew who he was from the shows. Like I follow Jimmy, I follow you guys, I follow Mike Francis, or I think Mike Francis, Chaz Palminteri, Mike Francis, a couple of other guys. And I said, Jimmy, if you want to come down and train in my academy, just come down. I know he doesn't live near here, but he's welcome to come down. And then he invited me on his show first. I did his show. Then he said, I want to come on yours. Maybe you'll get some followers. And that's what he did.
Hey, Danny, if you want to ask him a question, I got to jump off for a minute.
Sure. So, Mike, you have any involvement undercover with organized crime other than drugs?
No, to be honest, Danny, when I was in DEA, we did a couple of Italian cases, mob cases, and I stayed clear specifically. You know, my group, some of the guys in my group may have been working it, and I just stayed away because I always felt that I was going to run into these guys. You know, like and I tell you, I had that incident where they really wanted to throw all the money I wanted at them. At me to work this one Italian case, this one mob case, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So anybody that was working an Italian case, fine. If you need my hand to go out and put handcuffs on a guy, fine. But I wasn't going out hunting them guys or specifically doing anything. You know, I didn't put passes with them. Put it that way.
Sure, I had a relative that lived on 14th Street, First Avenue, and they had a drug problem. And they're dead now, but they used to go to Alphabet City, and they used to tell me you could get a used needle for 50 cents, and you can get a clean needle for $1. And they actually had buckets that they would rope up or rope down to get your product, or you just walk to a door with a slat, and you'd stick the money through, and then the dope would come out. It was amazing. It was its own city.
I was in the police academy, and I used to take the train normally to the police academy. But my good friend's brother was actually in my academy class. So the academy has different classes of like 40 guys in each class. And he was actually in my class. One of my best friend's brother was in my class. And the father used to take him to the academy, and me, both of us, once in a while when he was working, because his father was a cop. He worked as an emergency service cop right around the corner from the police academy. So he'd drive us in. So once in a while, he'd get off on Houston Street instead of taking the FDR drive all the way up, and he'd take like a shortcut in and out of like Avenue Avenue B, C, D, and end up on 14th Street and take that down. But anyway,
Yeah.
I was 20 years old, and I've been to Manhattan. Me and my friends used to go to Manhattan all the time, 42nd Street, just to bum around and start trouble. But
Sure.
I never went to Alphabet City. And I'm like, there was lines of 30, 40 people literally online behaving themselves.
Yeah.
And like I said, somebody walked down the line yelling what the name of the dope was, make sure you have your money ready, no singles, no fighting.
Yeah.
And these junkies would be, and I said to my friend's father, who was a seasoned veteran, I'm like, what's going on here? And he was like, oh, they're buying, they're copping dope. I'm like, they're allowed to cop dope like this? And he was like, yeah, NYPD they really don't want uniform guys getting involved with this kind of shit. It starts corruption, and plus the cities, it's all contained in this one little area. They're not too upset about it. It's all contained here, so they kind of let it go. That's why when after I got out of Coney, I said, I'm going down there. I really want to try to kick some ass down there, and clean up. And I was lucky. I worked with some good guys. My partner was a young guy from Flatbush, a year older than me, same mentality. And we really went over there and we, tried to make a difference,
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, that place was, if nobody's ever been there back in the 80s and the early 90s, that place was incomprehensible. It was a maze. And it was just, they would have cars and people lined up. It was amazing.
What people don't, I always tell everybody that at the time I had read an article from the New York Times that said, walled houses, the projects, Reese houses, they run right along the same line, right along Avenue D. Walled houses, Reese houses, and Baruch houses all run down Avenue D and Columbia Street are was at the time the most populated and dense area per square foot in the world, meaning more people lived in that little area than in the most crowded places in China, the most crowded places in Japan, India. So it was when you see like that one strip and all those buildings, there were more people living there per square foot than anywhere in the world.
Real quickly, and I'll let Lee go in. Do you remember the mural on the wall with the eagle holding the syringe in his talons there? It was amazing.
The guy who did that is a guy named Chico, and he actually did one of me and my partner on Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
No problem, Danny. Hey, Mike, what year was your first year in the police force?
I went into the police academy July 1983. I came out in January 1984.
So you remember the old New York, the old Times Square and stuff like that. Do you think that New York has lost its, I don't know, there was something about it back then that it doesn't have anymore? I don't know if you understand, like the old Times Square and stuff. I grew up in Times Square. I worked there when I was just 17 years old. And you go there now, it's nothing like that old Times Square. Do you think that New York is losing its face of what it used to be?
I mean, Giuliani changed Times Square, obviously. And for the business owners, he changed it for the better.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we used to go, I actually have a video. We used to go down there as kids and screw with the whores, the prostitutes, and the
They used to be naked, and they used to take this.
There used to be a hotel, Lee, you might know it, if you're familiar with down there. I always want to say it's on 47th Street between 8th and 9th. No, the Remington Hotel.
Oh, of course.
Real quickly, what about the Pickwick Arms? Do you guys remember the Pickwick Arms? I don't know.
There is that.
That was a whorehouse, anyway.
Oh. The Remington was a whorehouse also. We used to call it 1040 because it was $10.40. and the 40 cents was the tax. Was the tax. But yeah, I mean it was really it was a gritty, crazy area, 42nd Street.
And when crack and AIDS came out, it really went down real fast. I mean, it was bad in the late 70s, but as soon as crack hit the street, and AIDS, they both seemed to come out at about the same time.
Yep.
It just, the area overnight just became, but from what I understand, it's getting back there again.
Man, New York's a horror. De Blasio, he killed the city.
So what do you think what the police department has been going through, and they've been being disrespected over the last couple of years? What do you think about something like that? How much does it bother you?
It's terrible. I mean, look at these cops. They can't. I posted a video on my YouTube channel of these 3 cops trying to arrest one guy. Now, alone, I'm sure that these guys could have taken this guy down and cuffed him and not had a problem with him. But they were so afraid, in my opinion, and again, I talked about it a little bit. They were so afraid of like being videotaped, getting caught pushing this guy on the ground, putting his head in the cement, or roughing him up, that this guy kept getting up. It's the saddest thing you ever saw. He fell down, he gets up, he pushes one cop, the cop falls down, he nonchalantly pushes another one, walks to his car, opens the car door, they hit him with the taser gun, it bounces off, and he just closes the door and he drives away. It's and really, I'm not knocking the cops, because I'm sure alone, or even with the 3 of them, they could have easily taken this guy, cuffed him, and put him away. But
Exactly.
they're scared. They're afraid, not so much of the bad guy, of getting arrested or going to jail or getting in trouble, being on social media. It's really they took the life and they took
Cameras
the life.
cameras are everywhere now. People are carrying them. Even the police officer has a camera on him.
I know.
mean, you can't escape the camera no more.
It's ridiculous.
It's just like the mafia and gangsters. They can't work the streets no more because there's cameras everywhere.
And
Can you imagine the murders they used to commit back in the 80s? They would never get away with it now.
No, it's true.
And that's the sad part. Well, listen, I know you have a show in about 45 minutes, right?
An hour.
You have a show
7:00,
at 6 o'clock, right?
7 o'clock.
Oh, 7 o'clock. Okay. You got a couple more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Danny, do you have more questions you want to ask, or you want me to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, Mike. So with your channel right now, I noticed that you're at what are you, about 700 subs right now?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
How long have you had your channel up?
I think I started about 6 months ago, but it wasn't consistent, to be honest. I would do one, then not do one for a couple of weeks, and do another one. To be honest, even to this day, I don't really know the ins and outs.
Well, to be honest with you, consistency is the most important part of having the channels. Like Danny and I have decided that we're going to do 3 shows a week. We made you an exception this week because we were glad to have you on to interview you.
Thank you.
But consistency is definitely the most important thing. Coming on, at the times you're supposed to come on. But okay, now you also are covering other famous murders, and do you find that people are more interested in that? Is that what you're trying to get your channel toward? What exactly genre are you trying to bring your channel to?
Like I said, I like to tell stories that I was involved with, but I also think this Berkowitz thing I was involved with. That's why I kind of like talking about it, and I've been on a bunch of shows because people find it interesting. I still find it interesting. Even after I retired, I did some stuff on it. Some actual investigating on that case. So really, that's mainly what I've been doing so far, to be honest. If something pops up where it's really, I think, interesting, or like I said, with these cops with that video and maybe one other thing I spoke about, but looking at things from, I guess, a cop's point of view, I guess, is what my show's about, other than my particular stories, personal.
Have you been considering talking to people a lot of guys that have done long sentences in prison have gotten out and have very successful channels? Have you ever tried to speak to them?
I haven't tried. It's not a bad idea. Not that I wouldn't. I just haven't.
I see guys with like a 500,000 viewers.
Wow.
One guy just did a 30-year stint and got out in 2020 and already has like 500,000 viewers.
Wow.
So I think that's the thing about YouTube. YouTube's giving people opportunities that it would never give anybody. Look at these guys that have cooperated. John Alight, Gene Barillo, all those guys. They came on here right away, and people took to them. And a lot of those guys aren't even the real deal.
I know.
That's what makes it pretty amazing when you really think about it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it seems like the audience really goes for those guys, right?
Yes, they do. It depends who delivers to. People bust my chops sometimes, but I'll say it. You got to have the it factor, especially with, like right now we have 150 people in here. We've been consistently at that number. It's during the day on a Monday. Monday's the worst day to do a show during the day, but it's consistent, and our numbers are consistent. And Danny just started with me 1 month ago.
Right.
And the show's gotten more consistent. So basically, the only thing I would say to you is no matter what you do, always be willing to change your channel if it's not working.
Right.
And that's the main thing. But I noticed that you have pretty loyal followers, and you're going to be at 1,000 viewers very shortly. People, I like to say one thing. If you have not subbed to Mike Codella's channel, please sub to his channel. He's almost at 1,000. That means only 300 of you's got to go over there and sub. His stuff is really interesting. Danny.
He also has a book out, Alphaville. Get the book. You don't want to put it down. So get the book. It's great reading. And again, sub to his channel. He's a great guy and he has great stories.
Danny, you would like the book, Dan. It's a lot of Brooklyn, You would like it. Yeah. Well, there's Coney Island.
I'm gonna pick it up after work tomorrow.
Yeah, really. It's a lot. It's also on audio.
Right.
I don't like audio because I end up paying attention with like half a brain,
No, I like to read it. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, but there's a lot of Coney Island in it. There's a lot of Canarsie in it.
Right.
You'll get a kick. You'll recognize some of the names. You'll get a kick out.
Real quickly, Mike. I know you're from Canarsie, and I did some work with Patty Testa many years ago. I was in the auto glass business, and I did a lot of tag jobs. We used to take the windshields out. Do you remember a guy? You might. A lot of people don't. His name was Rudy. He used to sell things on the side of the road. You remember Rudy's Christmas trees? He used to be on Avenue M a lot.
Not the Kanish guy, right?
No. He used to, at one of the weddings, I'm not going to say whose wedding, but he walked ducks down a wise guy's wedding. You remember Rudy?
I remember the duck guy. I don't know if that's the same guy, though.
That's him.
I always wondered what happened. He used to have a duck named Gertrude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a good guy. And my uncle had a chicken place. Used to sell, fast food and stuff in Canarsie. And he always used to come in, and Rudy, believe it or not, he did a lot of favor for wise guys. He was around a lot of wise guys.
Is that right?
And I always wondered whatever happened to him.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do remember him, and I remember Gertrude.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, hey Mike, the two cops, the killer cops. Mm-hmm. Danny, what was their name?
Capper and Esposito.
Yeah,
Capper. Yeah.
Now those guys had family ties in their family of mob ties. Now, do you think that when you have those kind of ties and you want to go into law, it's hard to be a good cop?
I mean, it depends. I guess it depends. Well, listen, I don't know if Caracappa has mob ties, but I worked with his brother, who was a lieutenant detective, and his brother was a sharp guy. Wasn't up to, as far as I know. I mean, it's never been proven. I don't think there's any allegations against him that he's anything but a legitimate, hardworking cop. That's Caracappa's brother. Right. I mean, I guess it depends how. If your fathers and your brothers are, wise guys, might be hard to get away. I don't know.
Well, I find it quite fascinating because back in the 80s, a lot of cops that were hired seemed to get through the system, even though they had people in the family. Yeah. Now it would probably be a lot harder, I would think, because.
Well, I mean, legally, right? How could they keep me out if my father was a wise guy? That's my father. That's not me. As long as I've never been arrested,
right?
How could legally I would be able to sue probably, and and rightfully so.
And you had a lot of Italian cops back then, where, let's face it, every Italian in Brooklyn knows somebody,
right?
So I just wanted to ask you that question just because, not that I disagree with it. I think you're right. I think if somebody earns it, they should be able to get it. But cops like those two guys, they were, well, one of them who was so connected in this family, it just seemed like it was never investigated, until it was too late. I mean, so many murders were done, and
yeah, I think they were onto them early on, if I'm not mistaken. I think he got suspended at one point early on, and he got his job. He got some kind of departmental charges on him regarding that. I think he was. The allegation was that he was giving out plate numbers to the guys, and they actually brought him up on department charges. And I think somehow he beat that case, within the department.
And eventually, one of them having a big mouth was bad for both of them.
Yeah, and then he wrote that stupid book, right? Mob Family.
Yeah. He was a clown.
And that's the thing on here. I'll give you an example. Pasqua, the guy that just went back to jail, to prison. Yeah. He was on here, and he was opening up his mouth. He was telling stories opposite of what he gave information to the FBI. And same thing with Panisi. He did the same thing. So this could be dangerous for some of those informers that are still owned by the FBI, and that's what I call it, owned. But they are, so they got to watch what they say.
I knew a guy. I actually was talking to a guy about that guy Pasqua because I seen him on. I didn't know he was on your show. I seen him on Vlad's show.
No, he wasn't on ours. We just did a show on him.
Okay.
He was on Vlad TV, and the guy's a pig. He's a woman beater. Same with Panisi. He likes to beat women. And again, they get on this platform, and they try to, say what they want to say. But the underlying thing is they were both involved in beating up women, setting cars on fire on women. So they're real dirtbags. But anyway.
My friend, my guy who is in law enforcement, he told me that, and he was in the know, like not just, he was in the know with that. He said that they never trusted that guy Pasqua, meaning the mob. He was a nobody to them. They knew he was out of control. He was he was a drugged up guy. He was never going to get his button. He was, all the shit he talked. If you listen to him on here, you would think that he was a Superman.
Yeah, he was
he was running with Albanians, and the Albanians didn't even like him or trust him.
Right.
No, but
and that's the problem with these guys. They're on here exaggerating. John Alight's the king of it. They'll tell you things that just never happened. I mean, there's very few Sammy Gravanos on here. Let's put it that way.
So what do you think of Alight? Is he I don't know. I listen to him. I'm not a big listener of his. I don't feel like, as far as remorse, again, that's what I said.
I'm going to let Danny handle this. Danny, what do you think of John Alight?
Because he does have a video out there, right, with these guys, or no?
Well, listen, John Alight is a pathological liar, and I'm not saying he wasn't around. He was around John Gotti Jr. That's who he was around.
Right.
And even John Gotti Jr. got rid of him. He got beat up. He's a legend in his own mind. He depicts these stories that he was around John Gotti Sr. That's a fallacy. He was never talked to John Sr., had nothing to do with him. But if you listen to John Alight, he says after the Castellano hit, John Gotti called him up and told him to meet him at a club. Everything was done. It's just, anybody that listens to this guy has got to be a complete nitwit,
Well, I mean, the fact that he was so young, Gotti, I can't imagine a guy like Big John, the old man, dealing with a kid.
It's the furthest from the truth.
Didn't he tell him, Alight, and like I said, I haven't watched many of his shows, but I saw one where he said that he was given he was told to tell Joe Gallo that he's no longer the consigliere of the family. Why would he give it bizarre?
Right.
He was watching The Godfather.
Yeah. The guy's a clown. He's about 5'4". He thinks he's 7 foot tall. And he even tried to change his name to be Italian. That's how much he wanted to be Italian. The Albanians wanted nothing to do with him. He's a complete jerk off,
Yeah, like I said, I haven't watched many of his shows, but I don't know,
Yeah.
It's because you know what it is, Mike. You're going to have some of these guys probably come to you. You're just going to have to research him the best you can, or pick up the phone, even ask Jimmy Calandra or us or our opinion. Yeah. Our opinion might be different than Jimmy's, but that's for you to decide what you wanted to do. But
yeah, you just got a lot of nitwits and people that want to embellish and whatever platform they can get on, they'll try to sell themselves, and that's A-Light. I mean, I'm sure he made a lot of money, but he's a complete jerk off.
He said he shot 40 people, but only 1 or 2 of them died.
Yeah, he's a clown.
I never knew a mobster who would shoot 40 people and only a couple would die.
He was a nickel and bag drug dealer. That's what he was. And that's, his claim to fame is that he was John Gotti's senior's hitman, right-hand man, whatever you want to call him. So,
a matter of fact, Jimmy Calandra challenged him to a boxing match, and he never accepted it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was what was that, about a year ago, I believe. But, my dog's barking at your dog.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, I'm going to let you go, Mike, but we appreciate you being here. We'll consider you a friend of the show, and you're welcome anytime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really, I had a good time. It was really fun.
Listen, there's probably so much more stuff we can ask you. We put this together at the last minute, as you know, and hopefully maybe you'll come back.
After Danny reads my book, I'm going to have a quiz for him.
You got it. Mike, thank you very much for answering me back and coming on the show, man. You're a
thank you, man. Thanks for having me,
man.
Hey, Mike, don't you find it amazing, though, that guys like Danny know a lot of people you know?
You know what? It's a small world, and sometimes you got to be careful because it's a small world, and you run into people that you think it doesn't matter or you don't know, and it comes back. Man.
Yeah.
You're going to have a little crowd tonight at 7:00, so make sure you're prepared.
Make sure everybody go to Mike's channel and sub his channel, get his book. He's a great guy, and check him out.
And he has a show on tonight at 7:00 Eastern, and it's about eating Pats. I will definitely watch that. It's very interesting stuff.
Mike Codella up against the wall. Because I think I have something going on with a jiu-jitsu channel somebody started for me, and it's not mine. Is Mike Codella up against the wall? So
okay, well. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mike.
We're going to stay around here for a couple minutes, people. Thank you, Mike. You take care.
Thanks, pal.
Thanks, man.
Well, people, we hope you liked that. I mean, so what did you think, Danny? I mean, I really enjoyed that.
I like him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's, he knows a lot of things, and he's a nice guy to have on.
See, people, this is what you're going to get from us. We're going to try to give you interviews like this. And you know what? If we come on here with drama, we're going to get 100 more people. But now we're going to give you a little drama. I didn't want to do it while he was here because that would only make this dirty. Okay. This is going to be the last time I talk about Tony Pizza, Danny. But I got to make something perfectly clear. Tony's a mentally ill man, and what he's been doing lately, he's been making up stories. Stories about me giving him $100 to go after Danny, and then he made up another story with Joe Candela. He said to Joe Candela that I was putting pictures of his house out and stuff. And then he's been attacking Danny for the last couple of days. He's been doing that, people, because we called him out. And if anybody's going to come in here and they think that Tony's telling the truth about any of this stuff, don't come into this show. Please. Because if you believe a word that Tony Pizza says, there's something wrong with you. We're watching a man disintegrate mentally in a vehicle right before our eyes. A man driving around with 10 dogs in the back seat. He can't even take care of himself, and he has 10 dogs in the back seat. And I'm going to try not to speak about this creep anymore because he has nobody in his life no more. Nobody wants nothing to do with him. He's just a lonely man in a car. Danny, you want to finish off? Because he's been saying a lot of crap about you.
No, I'm not going to even respond. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the channel, and I hope you like Mike. We're going to try to get him back on with some other detailed information about certain things. And again, I really appreciate you guys coming out and checking out the channel.
Listen to this one. Tony Pizza said MB only goes after him because he turned her down. He said she wanted to take him to a hotel. Okay, guys. It's criminal. Yeah, that's very sad with the puppies. I mean, what else can we say? I think Tony has the best answer to that. I'm sorry, Danny has the best answer to that. We're not going to talk about him on this show no more. But I had someone call me this morning, and they were on the phone telling me what the guy really believed what this guy said. And then once I talked to him, he knew it was all a lie. Yes. His real name is Sean McCarthy. Yes. I'll read a couple of these before we go off, people. If you have any questions for us, just do it right now. And please go to Mike Codella's channel tonight. Give him support. He's a good guy, and people like that deserve as much support from us as they can get. Danny, did you know the Meditos?
From where I lived? If you're talking about from where I lived, I believe I did, yes. In Gravesend.
Okay, let me see. Mobcat, normally as a type, I'm getting notifications about the grubby little man. Glad you addressed this, but I'm done with the gossiping. And you're right, guys. You know something? This genre has been through a lot. We got a lot of fighting going on right now. And either we can keep the fighting up, or we can take our shows and try to go in a certain direction and put out content. But the reality is, a lot of people here like that crap. I'd rather get fewer views and do shows where I'm proud that someone wants to look at the library. I'll give you an example. When Danny and I don't do shows on certain days, we still get 2,000 to 3,000 views. And people are coming in with looking at the library. So that's how important your library is, people, when you have a show. Okay. Can you give us a hint on some topics that are going to be covered on this channel soon? Awesome show today. So, Danny, that's a good question for you. What kind of topics would you like to carry on and talk about on this show?
Well, we're gonna obviously stay in the mob genre. We're gonna have some more, hopefully more interviews and some more stories coming up. But you know, that's what we're trying to do. It's not to say that we won't, you know, venture off into something that's, you know, true crime or anything like that. But I think the premise will be mob.
This is a question for you. Hey, guys, how can I reach out to Danny? Does he have a website? He doesn't. Actually, he can give you his his Facebook page right now. And just tell him where to go. And if he likes you, he'll accept you, John. But John's a good guy.
Yeah, John, you can go to Facebook. I have a page. It's called This Thing of Ours Social Club. And if you go to Facebook and type it in the bar on the top, it'll bring you to my page, and I'll accept you, and you can come on in and look at all the stuff I have on there.
Okay, Don Vito, there's trolls taking content creators' names and going to other channels to start. Yes, they actually use our avatars and everything. It's only a matter of time before we see Danny's avatars. Danny doesn't care. Okay. Danny, did you do business with Midtown Collision?
No, I didn't.
You kind of hesitated there, Danny.
There's another one in Coney Island I did business with.
Okay, Danny, was there any racket activity on Coney Island Boardwalk itself during the day?
The only thing that, you know, really, Joey, took place on a boardwalk was a lot of drugs. That was the primary thing on the boardwalk. Although there was a spot, I'm not going to give it up because it's still there, that wise guys used to go to.
Here's a good question for you, Danny. Danny, are you having trouble sourcing glass due to supply chain issues?
Absolutely.
Oh, you are. How much is it affecting?
Because all the glass comes from China.
How much is it?
90% of it.
How much is it affecting the price right now?
Oh, you know, I used to buy glass for $60, $70 a piece, windshields, and now they're up to $190. And, you know, the insurance companies in the state of Florida, you know, only allow you a certain amount of money to make on a windshield. So if the windshields are surpassing my profit, what do? I can't stay in business.
Sons of Italy. Danny, did you know? Oh, we already said that. The Minginos in Gravesend. Okay. Danny, did you know the guys who extorted Casso's wife?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure Danny probably tried to stay as far away from Casso as you could, right? That was one guy.
I'll tell you a funny story real quick. My relative lives on National Drive in Mill Basin, and they actually lived about 4 houses down from his house when he was building it.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Danny, do you know Richie Antonio? He used to have coops with Sally.
Yeah, I know. I knew Richie very well. Richie was a funny guy. He was a little short, fat guy, and he was hysterical. I liked Richie a lot. He was a good guy.
Is that the guy you were talking to me about the other day?
I don't know. Somebody sent you to ask me, but I knew Richie very well. Richie and I won't go into what I knew. Richie was just a good guy. I liked Richie.
Okay, well, people, we're going to close it out here. We've been on for an hour and a half. We want to thank you. And we want to thank you for your loyalty. And we'll be back probably not tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. Because we usually do Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But things could change up. You know, we might get a guest we want to bring on like we did today. But thank you all very much. And please hit the like button if you haven't hit the like. If you haven't subbed, please hit the sub button. And also you can go to, once again, you can go to Facebook and Danny, your site on Facebook.
Yeah, my site is This Thing of Ours Social Club. You can find me on Facebook. I just want to address Rob Jean real quick. I think he lived in Staten Island where you do too. So I just want Richie D'Antonio. He was a good guy. Well, we answered as many questions as we can, guys. I hope you liked our guests. And please check out his show tonight on Eaton Pat's. That was a horrible, tragic story. It should be very interesting. Danny, you can hold on. I'll just close this out. Take care, people.